Good evening. Welcome in. This is The Spread. I am Cameron Tanner. With me, as always, SoCon John Hooper, or as ETSU fans better know him as, is John. Can't spell SoCon without Furman Hooper.
Yes.
How's it going, buddy?
I'm doing well. How about yourself?
That's doing good. It's been a long week, been an interesting week around the world of sports. Things going on. We'll talk about SoCon basketball, but Furman basketball right now with the COVID issues, and can talk a little bit about that. But it's been a weird week, I feel like.
It has been. It started kind of, I guess, with the two games that Furman dropped back to back, and then that kind of, you always want to get back to play, and right after you have those two losses or whatever, and they couldn't get back right away, but fortunately they were able to add a game. But it's a strange time, I think, in sports right now.
Yeah.
But the good news is, I think we're going to have a decent Super Bowl.
Yeah, we'll talk about that. That's going to be a pretty good matchup down in Tampa.
Yeah, it should be, and I'm looking forward to a great. It's kind of like if you look at it from this standpoint, it's like the new Tom Brady versus, you know what I mean? Like
yeah.
Versus the real Tom Brady right now. But like everybody was touting, they were touting Mahomes as the new Tom Brady just because they're set up for future success for years to come.
Kansas City, they're scary, and I honestly don't know how anybody beats them. They're just that good.
Sort of like LSU's offense a couple of years ago.
Yeah, and it almost that you kind of can draw a parallel to those Patriots teams in the mid 2000s, like 2004, 2005, when they had guys like Randy Moss, and some of the other some of the guys on defense like Brewski,
right,
Wilfork, and some of those guys. I mean, those teams were scary good as well. But yeah, Kansas City, they're just I feel like unstoppable. But we'll get into that Super Bowl matchup. Recap the AFC and NFC championship games from Sunday. Talk a little SoCon basketball as well. An interesting week in SoCon basketball. And a big week for Clemson finally getting a win after dropping 3 straight in basketball. They finally get a win. Yeah. We could talk about that in a second. But I want to start off, John. We were having an interesting conversation before the show about Tennessee and about head coaching positions in college football. And Tennessee going with Josh Heupel, the former head coach at UCF, now getting hired as the new Tennessee head coach. But there was some interesting talk and some speculation that maybe Tony Elliott would have been the guy, the offensive coordinator from Clemson, and right. It almost seemed like from some of the things that I've read or seen, it almost feels like maybe Tony Elliott turned that job down or had second thoughts about it.
If this is 10 years ago, it would be a no-brainer for him.
Yeah,
I think. The funny thing is, who was it that left? Jeff Scott that left.
Yeah, and is down at USF. Yeah,
I mean, that to me is a better job. That's a better job than Tennessee is right now. But just because, not necessarily in name of a program, but there's more opportunity for Jeff Scott to make a name for himself and succeed.
Yeah, and the Tennessee fan base, they're just one of those fan bases that are a little unreasonable. It can be at times, they've really there was a lot of push from the Tennessee fan base to go after Lane Kiffin again or Hugh Freeze. They really wanted either two of those guys.
That would have been funny if they would have hired Lane Kiffin.
Yeah, and there was actually some speculation that Lane wanted out of Oxford, which is I don't know how true that is or whatever, but it almost from what I've seen, people kind of felt like Lane was wanting the Tennessee job just to get out of Oxford. So I don't know. I don't know how true that is, but we'll see how Josh Heupel's a good coach. He's done a lot of good things with UCF in his couple of years down there. So maybe he can be that transformation for this Tennessee program. I don't know though, because Tennessee's going to have a lot of issues now with the whole recruiting violations thing. They're going to be on like probation and things like that from the NCAA. So it's going to be a tough.
They're not going to self-probation themselves. So
they're not Arizona basketball.
They're not Arizona basketball. They're not going to put, and then the NCAA like tax on to.
Yeah.
I mean, it is. It's funny because I guess the saying in any job is you want to leave it better than when you got there. But like literally, no one has left the Tennessee job better than when they've got it.
No, literally, the last good head coach was Lane Kiffin, and they had a 7-6 year that year. I'm pretty sure.
Right. I mean, it's like downgraded ever since. Like it's even when Butch Jones was let go, it was a better job then than it is now.
Yeah. There was some hope. And look, I thought that Jeremy Pruitt could have been the guy. Right. I thought he was doing some good things for the program. Well, now it turns out, he's stuffing McDonald's bags full of cash for players. So that didn't work out well. But had he not done that, I had thought that he really was doing some good things. He just hadn't get the right pieces in there, especially at quarterback. I mean, that was one of their biggest concerns for the past couple of years.
Yeah, that was vital. To get the right guy under center for them.
Yeah,
and that I never materialized for whatever reason. I there are times that it looked like Garantano was going to get it together, but just really they haven't had a quarterback. Let me think.
No.
Well, I mean, the Ainge kid was pretty good, but he couldn't stay healthy. Remember?
Yeah, that was several years ago. What was that, like 2011 or 12 or something like that?
Something like that. And then if you go way back, you had the Clausen, Clausens, I believe it was, or one of the Clausens, the older one, not the one that played at Notre Dame. But, and they've had – but really, they haven't had a guy that's been.
Josh Dobbs didn't. He had some decent success.
He was decent, yeah.
But
but like, other programs in the SEC. I mean, even like Mississippi State has had like Dak Prescott since like Tennessee's really had a good.
Yeah, and even Nick Fitzgerald after him, like after Dak.
Right.
You look at Ole Miss has had some good quarterbacks of late. Of course, Alabama, Auburn. They got Bo Nix. They had Nick Marshall several years ago. You're right. Every program outside, I'd probably say outside of Vanderbilt. I mean, when was the last good Vanderbilt quarterback? Jordan Rodgers.
Yeah, exactly.
Jay Cutler.
Yeah, Jay Cutler. I mean,
it is interesting though that program, for as big of a name and as big of a program as that is, that they've struggled like they have.
Yeah, it is. It's bizarre. It's a little bit shocking. I mean, because they have been, and some of that's just bad talent evaluation.
Yeah.
Like not that since the job hasn't always been a bad job. So like some of it's been just bad, not good assessment of talent. And, I think that's Jeremy Pruitt it was actually turning around recruiting one. Like if you look at their recruiting classes.
And yeah, they were still pretty young on, like offensive line and things like that. They were starting to get some pieces, but of course that helps when you're paying players bags full of cash in McDonald's bags. So
that never hurts the recruiting.
Yeah, but it is interesting. So we'll see. got to give Josh Heupel all the luck and support he can get. That Tennessee fan base has got to stop whining and complaining and rally behind this coach now and hope for the best. But it's funny. I get on Twitter and look at some of the Tennessee Vol fans, and it's almost like they've just given up being good ever again.
Well, yeah, it's like sort of like, except the only difference in Georgia is they just think they're going to win it every year now,
Oh, it was so funny. The Clemson's football schedule was released today, and literally I saw a Georgia fan comment that said if Georgia can beat Clemson in Charlotte on the opening weekend, that Georgia's going to win it all, win the SEC, and win the national championship.
Yeah. In what world is that going to happen,
Yeah.
So, yeah. So, that's not happening.
Yeah, no.
But, I mean, not to say that, Georgia won't be good next year. They're just not winning the national championship. I think they missed that window of opportunity 2-3 years ago, or when they went to
the national championship against Alabama, they lost the chance because now honestly I think Florida may be starting to take the lead in that division if they can follow up on this year's success. I know Trask is going to be gone, but if they can follow up on last year or this past year's success next year, I think Florida may be the team to beat in the East.
They could be. I mean, obviously they had an offense that would have they could hang with anyone this past year, but it was a question of they couldn't never stop anybody, and that was the big thing for them. And I think if he'll get it figured out defensively. I think, Florida's got talent, and they've always been pretty good on defense. So I don't think that'll last long there. I'm looking forward to see what they do next. It would be interesting to see them challenge Georgia, though, in that division. Yeah. I think you're right. I think they will.
Yeah, it's going to be an interesting race. But look, just wanted to talk a little bit about that Tennessee job and all the latest. Because with it being so close to home as far as the Tony Elliott situation there with Tennessee, it just very interesting. We'll get on to basketball here in just a second. We'll kind of switch topics to the NFL just real quick. I don't know if you saw today, but Deshaun Watson has officially announced he wants a trade. He wants out of Houston.
Wow, yeah, and that's it's not really shocking because we knew that was coming down the pipe, so to speak. But it the way it ended there was not ideal.
No.
And it was. I felt like, even when O'Brien was there, he didn't do anything to really help him. You know what I mean? Like, I felt like Deshaun really had no help whatsoever.
No, they got rid of DeAndre Hopkins, his biggest playmaker on offense, and he already doesn't have an offensive line. They really don't have that good, solid first string running back. He was basically having to do everything himself, and he's still, led the league in passing, and the Texans won 4 or 5 games this year. I mean, in spite of all of the problems that they've had, I mean, Deshaun's been the one bright spot. But I will say, it's interesting. Deshaun's kind of putting it out there that he wants out. Will the Texans actually trade him? If not, will Deshaun play? Will he sit? If he does that, the Texans are going to fine him and all this stuff for not, holding up his end of the contract. He just signed that big contract with him, last year or the year before?
Yeah, last year.
So it's going to be interesting, but there's been some talk of like where if he were to get traded, who he could get traded to, and
what about the Panthers that they make a play for him?
I absolutely think Carolina should. I think that's the perfect play for Carolina. He's a local guy.
Yeah,
played at Clemson. Clemson fans that are Carolina fans would absolutely love that.
And plus the draw. I mean,
absolutely, that'd be a big bonus. a big addition for that offense in Carolina. I definitely think that's a good fit.
They got the money to throw. I mean, to throw his way. So
yeah, and I think he would do well under Matt Rule. I think Matt Rule's a player's coach. I think he would do well under him. Another team that's been thrown out there is San Francisco, which, I mean, what would they do with Garoppolo in that situation? Is Garoppolo, are they done with Garoppolo, or
that's weird. He went from
leading them to a Super Bowl
last year,
yeah,
to this year, just not.
Well, he was hurt,
getting injured, and
yeah,
it didn't work out for him. It's not. I mean, it's not that he is any worse a quarterback. It's just maybe he needs to find his his future somewhere else, I guess is the best way to put it.
Yeah. I don't know. I just think that's interesting. I think Indianapolis would be a good fit, but I don't see Houston trading within their own division.
No, I don't think they would do that.
Maybe some Chicago fans think that he could end up in Chicago, which, yeah, I mean, I could see that. How great would that be, though, for him to replace Mitch Trubisky that was drafted ahead of him back in 2017? That'd be amazing.
That'd be crazy.
But I don't. We don't even know if Houston's actually even entertaining the idea or not. Literally, Deshaun's the one bright spot on that roster right now.
Right. And so, yeah, he's the one guy. You know what you're going to get out of him, and that he's literally still in the infancy of his career.
Yeah.
He's not a guy. I mean, he's had, some injuries, but nothing like, for instance, like a Cam Newton or he's still got a lot of good years ahead of him. I guess what I'm trying to say.
Yeah. And it's so interesting there. There's a lot of interesting quarterback situations out there around the league. What is Aaron Rodgers going to do? You got guys. What about Drew Brees? What is he going to do with his future? There's a lot of interesting situations around the quarterback position in the NFL right now. So that's something to keep an eye on. But we'll go from that to college basketball now. And right here in South Carolina, talking about a former Clemson quarterback, the Clemson basketball team had been struggling the last few weeks, dropping 3 games in a row by huge margins, just getting boat raced in 3 straight games. And, it looked like this week they were supposed to play Boston College yesterday, and it looked like that was going to be their good chance to get a win. And all of a sudden Boston College has to pull out because they have COVID issues. Right. And so then they have to switch the schedule up and they bring in Louisville, top 25 ranked Louisville. And you're thinking as a Clemson fan, oh my goodness, Lord, here we go. Yeah, here we go again. Our one chance to possibly right the ship, get a win, and we got to go and play Louisville now. But give credit to that Clemson team. They were able to do it. It was a low-scoring game, defensive game, but Clemson able to break the losing streak, and get a big win at Little John last night.
No doubt. And kind of, get the season turned around a little bit back in the right direction. They weren't, like I said, they weren't in danger of ever missing out on the NCAA tournament or anything, but 3 straight losses, that's something that's significant. And if that goes on, I mean, like in basketball, if it goes beyond 3, then you're looking at a team's psyche and how to repair all that. And it gets more difficult, the more losses you have. I mean,
and I think it says something now about this team. They've just gotten absolutely obliterated 3 straight games in a row, and they come out here as underdogs against a good Louisville team, and they were able to do what they needed to do. Sims and Dawes both had big nights last night, leading the Tigers to that victory. 54-50 was the final score. Very low-scoring game. Neither team could really shoot the ball well at all last night.
Yeah, they both and that's the kind of game that Clemson's been able to win. And
they seem to, when they can get into those low scoring defensive scraps, that's the kind of game that Clemson likes. They're not the type of team they're not going to be able to outscore teams that are dropping 75, 80 points on you.
No, absolutely. I mean, in that, that's not going to be, that's never been Brad Brownell as a cut. Like, he's never going to win those 84 to 80 games. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
So they have to make it almost like they have to let their defense dictate how things go. And they were able to do that from the outset last night. And really took, I thought maybe, Louisville out of their offensive rhythm from the outset of that game, which was something they hadn't been able to do the previous 2 games.
Yeah, the defense had really struggled coming into this game over that 3-game stretch, but they clamped down pretty well against Louisville. So, a big win, a nice win for Clemson. They now have to travel to Durham and take on Duke on Saturday, and it's not the Duke that we've seen that we're accustomed to. It's not that same same Duke team this year, but it's still Cameron Indoor, still a tough place to place, and it's not
even with the synthetic noise.
Yeah, and it's not a place that Clemson historically has played well at.
No, it's not, and I think that it takes a little bit. It's a different environment. I watched some of the Georgia Tech game the other night. I mean, it's a different environment altogether. Where now Duke is, a lot of people see them, they used to say that the crowd accounts for maybe 5 to 6 points a game or whatever. At Duke, it might account for 10 points a game, because I think it's really that significant. And I think Clemson's got as good of a shot as they've ever had to go in there and spring the upset.
Yeah.
And then when is the game they make up with North Carolina? Have you heard?
It's right after the Duke game, on February 2nd. So next Tuesday. So they have Duke on Saturday and then follow it up with North Carolina at home on Tuesday.
Okay.
So back-to-back games there.
Yeah. That'll be interesting.
And then they have Syracuse.
Yeah. And yes, and that game is up at the Dome.
No, that game's at Little John.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay. So that their schedule actually, those are tough games, but it actually kind of works out in their favor now.
Yeah.
So we'll see. I mean, it could be, I think it could be a solid finish to the schedule.
Yeah.
Depending on, I don't know how much, and this is something I don't really know with the SoCon either, is like what's the emphasis on a conference tournament? Like how many games are you going to get in? And those are still all a lot of unknowns about college basketball.
Yeah. Yeah, that's something that you have to keep an eye on and watch for. But speaking of the SoCon, John, it's been an interesting week in the Southern Conference for basketball. Furman dealing with some COVID problems. Had a player or somebody test negative on the team 3 straight days now or something like that, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday?
Yeah, I think if you test negative for 3 straight days, you can go back to practicing. So I guess they returned to practice yesterday.
Okay, so they were able. Okay.
The SoCon, you have to test on Sunday, and then test again on Monday. So, I'm assuming there was a false positive somewhere in here, and that obviously they were scheduled to play UNCG on Monday, and UNCG was already here, and they couldn't play that game. So, they'll make that game up, I think, the 8th, and then they turn around and play them again the 10th. So, it's kind of what a lot of other conferences are really doing right now is the back-to-back kind of like baseball series type deal,
Yeah, and Furman will be taking on Western Carolina this weekend, but they're coming off 2 straight losses. They lost to VMI and then lost to ETSU on Saturday. John, you were up there in Johnson City for that one.
Yeah, ETSU obviously. This time they had both Brewer brothers, and they're very good. I think they're a team. I thought Brewer played really well, but the guy that really seemed to hurt Furman was Damari Monsanto, who I think hit 6 or 7 3-pointers in that game. He's really just come on for them this year, and redshirted last year. And you never know how those guys are going to work out, but he's certainly been as good as advertised. He was one of their higher rated recruits. I believe Illinois came in on him late last year in the recruiting process. So he's a really good player, a dynamic rebounder. And Furman just really had trouble, guarding. I felt like they guarded the 3-point line. I felt like ETSU was just making shots. And then on the other end, Furman was not making shots.
Yeah.
Which has been a little bit concerning the past couple of times out.
Yeah, for sure. And Furman will be happy to see Timmons Arena this weekend. Those 2 losses coming on the road, and you put in you sent me an interesting stat earlier today, John. Furman very good and very tough.
They're since the start of the 2015-16 season, they're 70-11 at home, and they've won 19 straight at home. I think the last Southern Conference team to beat them in Timmins, the last team to beat them there would have been Samford in February of 19. I believe that's right. So, yeah, they've got quite a winning streak, and it could be argued that Samford game that they lost that year, that was the year they beat Villanova, might have kept them out of the NCAA tournament as an at-large. So.
Yeah, it's crazy. Crazy stat there. I mean, very, very tough at home. And we were joking that not really sure why. Maybe it's the especially in a year like this year where there's not really any fans or anything at the games, but maybe teams just have a hard time with the design of the building because it's a weird layout.
The great trapezoid.
Yeah. It's the strangest, because I don't know who designed it, but
at first people hated it, and then they were like, "Well, Furman's kind of winning here, and other teams are not playing well." Yeah. So then all of a sudden it became, "Wow, this is pretty cool. This place is awesome." So it's been interesting. I mean,
yeah,
part of that has nothing to do with the court and everything to do with the culture change.
Yeah, absolutely. I just thought that was funny, but
actually should say most all of that has to do with the culture change. But it is interesting that teams seem to struggle shooting in that gym.
Yeah, absolutely. And the opponent that Furman's got on Saturday's Western Carolina, who's coming off a couple of losses straight. They've lost to Samford, they've lost to Mercer, they've lost to ETSU, Wofford, and then they just lost to VMI yesterday. So it's been a tough stretch for the Catamounts.
Yeah, they've struggled.
Lost six straight losses. They've not won a conference game yet.
And some of them have been, a lot of those conference losses have been really, really close. I know the Mercer game was a 2-point game. I'm trying to think that they've had several. I mean, the ETSU game the first ETSU game wasn't really a blowout. I think it was 8 points or 6 points. I mean, they've been in every game. It's just been, until last night when VMI just, really got it going in the second half, and they were just dominant.
Yeah, I find it interesting. The schedule has not been nice to Western. They've played 6 conference games. 5 of those have been on the road.
Yeah. It feels like they haven't been home in years. So I'm sure that'll be a welcomed, sight to see the Ramsey Center, regardless the opponent on Saturday. When they play Furman.
Yeah, they get Furman. And then they have the Citadel on the first, like back to back. They get the Citadel like 2 days later at home.
Yeah, the Citadel was interesting. You know, they hit something like 14 threes yesterday, and
what a big win for them against Wofford. What a win!
Got a win over. I think that was the first win they got over Wofford since, was it maybe 16, 17 or 14, 15, something like that. You know, but it doesn't happen all too often that the Citadel, you know, beats Wofford, but they've been a team that's really played well at home this year, and they're better. I mean, they're obviously they didn't have anybody last year because they were all injured. And when you're playing 7 guys, I mean, there's a good example on TV last night with Florida State and Miami. I think Miami only had 7 guys available, so that makes a huge difference. And you know, the fact that Hayden Brown is just having a season unlike he's ever had before, where he's just dominant in every facet. I think that makes a difference too.
Yeah, and for Wofford, you know, Messiah Jones had a good game, but really it was Storm Murphy. That was it. That was the entire offense.
Yeah, it was. And, you know, Storm Murphy is, you know, maybe the best. You know, I hesitate to say that because the SoCon has so many good point guards. But because Isaiah Miller is, you know, he's at UNC Greensboro as the reigning player of the year. But having said that, I think Storm's actually having a better season this year. You know, and he could challenge for player of the year just because I think if you took Storm away from Wofford, I know they'd be pretty good, but he's like the heartbeat of their team, and I know Miller's important to UNCG as well. But you know, it'd be a tough call. But I think those 2 guys, along with Mike Bothwell at Furman, and Ladarius Brewer, those 4, I'd had to put in the front as the front runners for the player of the year in the SoCon so far.
UNCG, the hottest team right now in the SoCon. They winners of 5 straight games, coming off of a win last night, John, against Mercer, a big win, 81-68. They've also, you know, took down Chattanooga over the weekend, 74-66. So right now, UNCG, the team that was really struggling to find themselves in that identity early on in the year, seems like they've really got it going and gotten it clicking here conference play.
And they have, and they, you know, they're always a team that was going to have talent. I think it is more shocking that like there's so much turnover, and then they've been so good so fast, you know, and that really is a testament to the job that Jason Shea's coming in and really done, taking over as the head coach. And, you know, I think full credit has to go to him. But then, you know, obviously the more they play together, the better they seem to be getting, you know. And I think, you know, you look back to that opener against Abilene Christian, who was very good. But it was a team that it was shocking to score 70-47, I believe it was, to see that an ETSU team lose like that. But I always knew that was going to be more the anomaly this year as they played more. And I think you're seeing that right here.
Yeah, absolutely. It's going to be an interesting race on SoCon. And we were talking about it earlier. You mentioned that you believe, John, that whoever wins the regular season title probably won't win the tournament title. You don't think that you think it's going to be very hard for one team to win both.
Right.
You know, I agree. You know, I think it's just such a competitive league that you really do. You know, once the tournament comes, you're going to have probably 4 or 5 teams as real competitors for the tournament title.
Yeah, and you know, I think you can go down as deep as maybe Mercer or Chattanooga in that respect, as far as teams that could essentially, you know, even VMI, I mean, make a run and knock somebody out. You know, and any of those teams can knock Furman, a UNCG, ETSU out of it. But not only that, VMI's got the shooters over a weekend to get hot and win 4 games somewhere. So, that's not unheard of. But yeah, I think one of those 4 teams. I think Wofford, Furman, UNCG, or ETSU. But I don't think the same team that wins the regular season will win it. If that makes sense.
Yeah, no, I completely understand what you're saying, and I agree with you there. Right now, as it stands, you got ETSU on top of the league with a 5-1 conference record. Right behind them, UNCG and Wofford. Furman there, sitting right at just 4th, and then VMI, Mercer, Chattanooga, the Citadel, Samford, and then coming in last place, the 0-6 Catamounts.
Yeah, it's. And at some point, when they get more home games in, they're going to get it. They're going to start getting some wins, because they got a lot of talent back from last year. I think it's just like you said, the COVID thing, the scheduling, everything's kind of worked against them so far this year. And I don't think I think, Mercer had a similar start last year. They were 0-4. Obviously, we didn't have COVID or anything, but they ended up rallying the troops and kind of, I think they ended up winning like 12 of their last 16 or something. I'm not saying that Western will do that, but I think, I think it's possible to see something like that.
Yeah.
Especially when you got a player like Mason Faulkner who really hasn't had that good of a start to the season, but he's really, when he gets it going, he is one of the better scorers in point guards. I mean, the SoCon has so many good point guards, but he's another guy that had 2 triple-doubles last year.
Yeah. Any way in your mind, John, that more than one SoCon team makes the big dance come March?
I mean, I wish I could say yes.
Is there any scenario where 2 teams from the Southern Conference get in?
I mean, I think if Furman had beaten Alabama, I think they'd have a shot. But Furman, like, just because the year that we had, like, it was so crazy in scheduling, I think they're probably going to, if they don't let a second team in when, a Furman beats a Villanova or a UNCG beats a Georgetown, I don't think it's going to be there's not really enough marquee wins outside of the conference, and that's not really that's not the fault of those teams, because obviously it's hard to schedule, especially in a year like this. Furman had trouble, and ETSU have trouble scheduling anybody in a normal year, but especially in a year like this, nobody wants to touch those games because they don't want to risk losing them. Which, full credit to Alabama and some of those that played they played ETSU and they played Furman. So they were willing to go out and play a couple of those games, but a lot of teams won't. So that's unfortunate, but I think that will be held against the league. I mean, the league, even though they couldn't schedule them, which that also, that's something that I think has to change about college basketball for mid-majors, because it's not really fair to penalize them for games they can't schedule. Like in football, it's a lot different. No one's scared to schedule an FCS foe, unless it's like North Dakota State in
right,
football.
Right.
So in basketball, it's totally different because you might lose that game. So especially against a good Furman team, a good ETSU team. So I think it's just different, and that gets held against those, the Furmans and the ETSUs.
Yeah, I'll be interested. Do we know if they're going to have an NIT this year? I mean, I'm assuming that they're going to have I
am assuming, since the NCAA controls that there will be one. And now I don't know if it'll be with the same amount of teams, or if it'll be a reduced field. But I would assume, since they pay for that, and the interesting thing about that is it's actually more doable. Well, I mean, I say that, but they're playing all the NCAA tournament games at one place, so maybe
right.
maybe not. I mean, I was going to say, like, if you played it at one campus, though, you could do it. But I'll I don't know how they'll go about it. I would assume that they'll have one.
I just thought, I was just thinking if they have an NIT tournament.
Now, I doubt some of those other tournaments you have to pay to be in, like the collegeinsider.com or whatever. I doubt anyone's paying to be in any tournament this year because of, the financial. So I doubt those will happen, but I think the NIT and the NCAA obviously will.
Yeah. Okay. Well, we got a couple of weeks left in the regular season before conference tournament time, so it's going to be a fun down the stretch here in the regular season before we get to the tournament here. End of February is when the conference tournament will start, correct? Or is it March?
Right. Well, it's the beginning of March.
Beginning of March. Okay.
It's it's kind of a fluid situation in a way because you don't really know when you're going to have a chance to get those games in.
Yeah.
Like I think you need at least a 10-day window before the conference tournament to make sure everybody's got, like you can't have any positive tests in the tournament, because how would you, would you disqualify a team because you couldn't just take a 2-week break and come back to it? So.
Yeah, that's what's going to be. That's what's going to be different with basketball than what we saw with football. It's going to be hard. And
it's going to happen somewhere. I mean, there's going to be. That's why a lot of people are saying, I think the mid majors will probably keep their conference tournaments, but for the ACC, it really doesn't matter. They're why not just get like an extra, 2 weeks to prepare for or a week to prepare for the tournament because those teams are essentially you're not going to have a team usually that wins it that wasn't going to be in. I mean, rarely do you see that in major conferences. It happens more, I feel like, in mid-major conferences. So I think they'll try, and if they can't have, mid-major, they may just decide to go with the regular season champion. That could be what we see, but and I think that changes. I found it interesting that Furman moved their games from the downtown arena. There's a lot of, now that I look at that, there's a lot of reasons to move them to Timmons Arena, given the record I just gave you, and the fact that what if it is the regular season champion that they reward? You want to have the best chance you can to win all those games.
Yeah, exactly.
And as fun and as nice as it is to play downtown, it's not Timmons Arena.
Yeah.
That's funny because I got a text from Steve Forbes, the ETSU coach last year after Furman had lost to UNC Greensboro at the Well. He was like, if they play a game in Timmons, Furman wins by 10. And so I thought that was interesting that he saw it that way, but he was like, I understand why they did it because it's a great moneymaker because, you get 6,000 people in there, but he made a great point. And actually, I guess if Furman had played them at Timmons Arena and beaten them, they would have tied for the conference championship. So interesting way to look at that.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Well, John, we got a good finish coming in the regular season of basketball. Hopefully, everything works out smoothly. And hopefully, I know there's going to be COVID issues, but hopefully we can get the games played, and I hope we have a tournament. I think conference tournaments are a lot of fun. So. Just keep it.
Yeah, championship week is one of the neat parts of basketball season. It really starts that week, and then you've got obviously the NCAA tournament. The first 2 weekends are what the NCAA tournament really is. I think what makes it.
Oh yeah. The first 2 rounds are or what's so special about the NCAA tournament. All right, John, let's turn our attention now to the NFL. We've got Super Bowl. Was it 55? Are we in Super Bowl 55? I don't even know what number we're up to now, but we've got it set up now, John. Last weekend on Sunday were the conference championship games. Had Tampa Bay versus Green Bay in the NFC, and Buffalo versus Kansas City in the AFC. And honestly, thought that maybe the AFC championship game would be the better of the two, but it turned out to be quite the opposite. Tampa Bay able to pull off a nice win up at Lambeau against Green Bay and Aaron Rodgers, and Tom Brady getting back to the Super Bowl, first time as a Buccaneer, but 10th time in his career he'll be in a Super Bowl. And man, I honestly sort of felt like Green Bay sort of choked it away. I thought they were the better team, and they just
I did too, and we kind of agreed at lunch today that was the case. I mean, to me, they look like the better football team.
Yeah.
It just looked like, to me, it was a case of them beating themselves, mental errors.
And defense, that was the worst I've seen at least the secondary play all season.
Yeah, and that play before the half,
yeah,
that was really a harbinger of things to come for.
Can't let that happen. Can't let that happen with 10 seconds left to go in the half.
And I know somebody they'll blame, some people blame coaching, but really that guy, that's what he gets paid. Like, you can't play as close to the line of scrimmage as he was playing against their fastest deep threat, and to just get beat like that. I mean, the guy didn't do. It's not like he just ran straight past him. It's not. It wasn't rocket science, but I think it's unfortunate because that play did end up losing. Now, where I do blame maybe coaching a little bit is trying to kicking the field goal there with a little over 2 minutes.
I think just over 2 minutes. You're inside the 10, and you kick a field goal down by what they were down by
8, I think.
Yeah. 8. Yeah, down by 8, and they tried to kick a field goal, make it a 5-point game, which you still got to have a touchdown.
Right, exactly.
I don't understand. I didn't understand that decision by Matt LaFleur.
You still have to score a touchdown. It's not like you're if you got and the other thing I didn't really understand was, why did they go for 2 on the touchdown prior to? Do you remember that? I mean,
I got that one because they were trying to make it a 3-point game. They scored the touchdown and they were up by 1. And so you go for 2 in order to make it a full field goal, to where a field goal doesn't beat you. So I kind of got that one, but I didn't understand the decision to kick the field goal there late in the game. I mean, and look, the play right before that on 3rd down, Aaron Rodgers was scrambling and had the entire right side of the field open. He could have run it in and decided to throw it across the middle to Devontae Adams, who had 3 Buccaneer defenders on him. Aaron Rodgers probably could have scored right there.
Right. Oh, yeah. Yeah, I definitely agree. And that was a bizarre play, and because you're thinking, well, he's been around long enough to know when he can run and when he can't. I mean, you would have thought he would have made the right decision in that case, but obviously not. But I mean, it's still going to be an interesting Super Bowl because you've got, like I said at the beginning, you've got the old Tom Brady versus the new Tom Brady, or whatever everybody's calling. Tom Brady.
Yeah, and then the AFC Championship game, it started out looking like it was going to be a good one. Buffalo gets up to a 9-0 lead early in the game. Kansas City offensively was not playing very well in the first quarter, and then all of a sudden they busted it wide open in the second quarter and never looked back. And ultimately, Buffalo, there's nothing Josh Allen or the Bills could do to stop. I mean, the Buffalo defense, I don't know what they were trying to do, but Travis Kelce was open all night long. I don't think there was anybody even near Travis Kelce all night.
No, there absolutely was not, and I don't know what the game plan against him was, but it, it did not work, to say the least.
No, it didn't. And I mean, Tyreek Hill had a big night catching the ball as well. I mean, that we've talked about it. That Kansas City offense is just so scary. I mean, there's so many.
They're versatile.
Yeah, so many playmakers. Clyde Edwards-Helaire was back after being hurt for a few games. He gets back out there, and it just is a different dynamic. And I mean, Kansas, they're so good. And
there's so much speed everywhere.
Yeah. So I'd be interested. These two teams, Kansas City and Tampa Bay, did meet each other in the regular season, and Kansas City did win that game. So I'll be interested to see what they do in the rematch in the Super Bowl, which is in Tampa Bay. This is the first time in the history of the Super Bowl that one of the teams will be playing at their home stadium in the Super Bowl. So yeah, Tampa Bay gets home field advantage, which is very interesting. To say the least.
Yeah, and there's the familiarity of being at home, but like, what's ever going to get you used to playing against Kansas City's offense? You know what I mean? Like, so that part of it, I think it's going to be difficult whether you play them at home or wherever you play them. So. I think it'll be good for 3 quarters, but I just don't see how, that Kansas City doesn't pull away in the end.
Yeah.
So I don't know what your feelings are.
Yeah, maybe just because you have Tom Brady on the other sideline, maybe they keep it close for 3 quarters. But yeah, I agree with you. Much sort of like last year's Super Bowl when Kansas City won, San Francisco kind of dominated the game for 2+ quarters, and then Kansas City in the second half of that Super Bowl last year really took over and ended up pulling away in that one. So I could sort of see a similar thing happening, not this weekend, but next weekend in the Super Bowl. Got the Pro Bowl this week, which is going to be kind of weird, John, because they're doing it like virtually, like a Madden simulation type thing. It's going to be strange. We were talking about it at lunch too. How
can you really improve? They've got to make some kind of improvement to the Pro Bowl in general. I mean, it's no one.
Well, we were talking to the NFL Pro Bowl, essentially an all-star game, is probably the least exciting all-star game in any of the major sports.
Right. Yeah. I mean, no one. I mean, I don't know anybody that watches it. I'm sure you don't know anybody that watches it.
No, because the players really don't care. It's just a scrimmage, essentially.
It's a novelty, sort of.
And it's like, unlike in baseball, unlike in basketball, even unlike in hockey, there's a feeling like in those sports, you really want to go out there and win for your division or for your conference.
Right.
There's a real but I don't really get that in the NFL. And maybe because it's more of a physical contact game, players don't want to get hurt just playing a.
Well, I think, and part of it too is like, well, our season's already over, that kind of deal. And like they kind of, I mean, they're not going to this. Essentially, the teams they're not going to the Super Bowl. The players that are playing in it. So I mean, there's just no incentive.
Yeah,
really.
There's not, and
at least with like baseball, you have some kind of incentive. There's a home field advantage or whatever. There's that kind of appeal to it, but there's not any appeal unless, why not change things up? Why not play like when the XFL gets going for a few years? You play the All-Stars, of 2 different leagues. I think there's some appeal maybe to doing something like that.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't know what the fix is, but yeah, the Pro Bowl has just never been one of those it's just not been one of those appealing things in the NFL. And look, they play at that old, worn-out stadium in Hawaii for some reason every year. Like
The Aloha Bowl.
yeah, it's the why do they have to go all the way out to Hawaii, like to play a scrimmage? Like it's weird. Like they've got to figure because with Major League Baseball, a different ballpark hosts the All-Star game every year. I know Atlanta's hosting it. I think either this summer or next summer. And it kind of rotates. Each team kind of gets to host the All-Star game at one point. Do that with football. I mean, I think that's
just they've got to change something.
And they tried for those few years when they had like Jerry Rice and Deion Sanders like as coaches, and they would get to pick. It's basically like a schoolyard. I mean, I pick this guy, or I pick like they got to pick which players they wanted on their team from either of the conferences, which was interesting. And they wore like those neon green suits. It was really weird, but I mean that kind of worked maybe for 1 year as like a gimmicky thing, but then it got old after the second year of it, and so they've reverted back to the old NFC versus AFC matchup.
Right, and and that's. I mean, there's some appeal because it's different divisions, but then you kind of already get that with Super Bowl. I mean, like,
right.
I don't know what the fix is. I mean, I think I'd just do away with the game, to be honest with you, and just pick a Pro Bowl team or All-Pro team.
Yeah, because I mean, in college, you don't have an All-Star college game. You just have All-Americans. You have an All-American list.
Like, for instance, like in college, I think one of the really cool things about college basketball is the dunk contest. But you have the college dunk contest, which is, to me, is pretty cool. You don't really have an all-star game. You just have more or less events surrounding the national championship, which is neat to me. And I like that part of it. Like, if you could do something like that with like the skills competition with football, I like that part of it. You know what I mean? I always think there's kind of an appeal to a guy that, those passing competitions where they'll have the quarterbacks, and you used to see them on ESPN, and they try to hit a target from 25 and 50 yards. And so I like that kind of stuff. But, as far as a game, I think that's what, you're never going to steal the thunder from the Super Bowl. So why play the game?
Yeah. Therefore, it's always been right the week before the Super Bowl. They tried it, I think, 1 or 2 years where they actually did it after the Super Bowl, which was even weirder. But I don't know. It's interesting. But well, John, we got a good week of basketball this weekend ahead of us, and getting 1 week closer each and every week to spring football season. So come mid-February, we'll have lots to talk about once FCS spring football kicks off.
Yeah, every team's going through what I guess now would be considered spring practice, but it's a different kind of spring practice. It's funny because Clay Hendricks was like, well, normally this time of year, he's like, we've had so many fall, spring camps. He was like, we're way ahead of where we would be. We had fall camp, didn't have a season. So, so like, I guess everybody's, wants to play, and, Furman's got a lot of experience. We talked about the offensive line at lunch. I think they got a combined 83 starts among the 15 players they've got returning along the offensive line. So a lot of experience.
Yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun. Well, John, looking forward to some basketball this weekend. We'll get back at it next week on the show and talk a little bit more basketball, and then we can really dive into the Super Bowl matchup a little bit more get ready for that for next weekend. So, but looking forward to all of that, man.
Yeah, it's going to be fun, and looking forward to getting back to it next Thursday or on Sunday.
All right, John, it's been a pleasure. We'll see you again. This has been The Spread. Thanks for listening to The Spread podcast here on Podbean. Head on over to thespreadfootball.com and check out all of our weekly articles and catch replays of each show on the podcast page. Also, head on over to social media and follow us on Facebook at The Spread with Cameron Tarrant and on Twitter at The Spread Podcast. We'll catch you next time.